All right, guys. Hey, welcome to Reboot, our Wednesday night student podcast. Welcome. Glad to have you with us. As you may know, we're back on campus. We have student small groups on Wednesday at 6:30, but we'll keep doing Reboot for a while to just make sure you have something if you're not ready to come back, or if you just want to go a little deeper. Again, I'm Todd, and I'm here with Brian. What's up, man?
Hey.
How are you?
Doing good. Doing good. Happy birthday.
Yeah, it is my birthday. Yes, yeah. I am 44. Why are you telling people
for everyone out there, you're double my age. And I just learned that. And that's so shocking because, like, you don't...
Because I whoop up on you in basketball?
No, you don't, man. Get out of here. You don't look like that old, though.
That is not that old.
That's pretty old.
So you're saying I'm twice the man you are. So
you got me there. That's good. See? That's clever.
All right, you guys. So, hey, Brian, before we jump in and start talking about First Peter, tell us about Invest Camp.
Yeah, something I'm so excited about. So, July 6th through 10th, go ahead and mark your calendars. It's $250 a kid, and we're staying at the Lexington Conference Center. It's a mile down the road. It's like a 3-minute drive by the Duval County Public School, school board office area. And so during that week, we'll actually be doing some missional work here at the church, and we're going to work with the kids camp here and just invest in the kids. But then also throughout the week, we're going to have nightly worship services. We're going to go to the beach, going to go bowling, and do just different fun stuff like that throughout the week. And just enjoy community with each other and get closer with each other. So really excited about that.
So it's kind of like Infuge just here because of what's going on.
It's Infuge in Jacksonville pretty much.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And if they want to sign up, more information, what do they do?
Yeah, go to ssbc.org and then go down to the camps thing on the main page. I think it's on the main page. Mm-hmm. And then you just click on Invest Camp, or you can email me at brianc@ssbc.org, or have your parents send me a text or something like that, and we'll get the link out to you. So
that's cool. It's going to be a good week. As you said, you're helping with our kids camp, which will be that day from 9 to 2, and we've got a good group coming out to that. So it's really exciting.
Yeah, it's been so exciting, even just in the past few days, walking around and hearing all the kids run around and scream. I can hear them out there in the office, whenever they're leaving the gym area. It's just so it's so joyful right now just to have the kids inside of the church and to just get to share the gospel with them right now. And especially there's a few or a good amount that don't even go here. It's what a great tool and great potential that we have to reach them right now. So,
and I tell you what, for the week of Invest, I'll hook you up. I'll let y'all play some Blacklight.
Oh my gosh,
that's so cool, man.
That's so
the only thing I gotta fix is I had blue tape on the ground, and it's a little bit harder to see, where if I have a white tape, it'll reflect. That's going to look cool.
Me and Darren went in that room today, and we saw that the rug interfered with the tape. Yeah. That was so funny. I was like, what is this?
So yeah, you see how lazy I am. I didn't move an area rug. I just taped over it because I'm lazy.
Yeah,
but
all
right,
cool.
So let's talk about First Peter. So like we said, we've been looking at Joshua, but we're going to pause for Joshua and jump into First Peter just for something different as we're getting into summer, kind of signify that we're doing a little something different here. Now, when we start today, we're going to do a lot of background on First Peter just to help you understand it, because I really think it's a great book. But the more we understand going into it, the better we're going to understand it, because there are some confusing things in it. But so one thing to think about is who wrote this book. It's Simon Peter, the disciple that was always putting his foot in his mouth, the disciple that was always messing things up. He denied Jesus 3 times, and he's the one who writes this book, and of course 2 Peter as well. So I want to stop right there and just kind of think about that, take that in, knowing that Peter was always making mistakes, and we know Jesus forgave him on the beach 3 times after the resurrection, but still, he's the one writing this book and actually leading the church at this time. So when you think about it, Peter leading the church, writing this book, so what does that tell us about God's ability to use anybody and everybody?
I think it's so encouraging just to know that, especially as a student group, to know that God can use them individually to accomplish anything in God's will. And I think it's so important because we hear all the time that God doesn't call the qualified. Instead, he qualifies the called. So, for us, that means that, even if we're unqualified to do a certain task or to do something, God can still use us to do that. And I think that's so cool and so amazing for our students to know, and to look at Peter as a really good example for this too.
Right, and that's actually really cool that you think about it in the Bible. most of the people God calls to do his will aren't qualified. The prophets weren't real prophets or whatever. The ones that were actually qualified are the ones that mess up, like Jonah going the other way or things like that. So it's pretty amazing. God can use anybody, and I put it a different way. He doesn't call the equipped, he equips the called. I think that's really good. So all right, so God can use anybody, but what does Peter writing this book also tell you about God's grace and God's love?
Yeah, I think it's so important. It shows us that God is full of grace and full of mercy and love towards us. And I think that, for us, at least for me, I had the mindset of, God showed Peter this love and grace, and so he's going to show me the same exact love and grace. And I just think that's really amazing to think about, of how God cares about each person individually and loves each person individually, and that's just a really good feeling, and it's really comforting to know, and especially in situations of unrest, kind of like what we're in right now, that God can use you for anything, God can use me for anything. So
right, and that's awesome. And it doesn't mean God to use us doesn't mean we're perfect, and it doesn't mean we're going to be perfect. We're going to make mistakes, but he'll forgive us and guide us. And the same dude that denied Jesus 3 times stands up in front of people and challenges their faith and gets beaten and thrown into jail because God worked with him, and he can do the same with us. But that's good. So one of the things I love is that Peter was a Jew, and of course we know at that time Gentiles and Jews did not get along very well at all. They actually didn't like each other at all. And so Peter, actually coming to know Christ, is really slow to love the Gentiles. He doesn't want anything to do with the Gentiles. In fact, at one point in Galatians, you can see Peter telling Paul to go to the Gentiles, and he'll go to the Jews. But then later, we believe First Peter was actually written to a Gentile audience, to the non-Jews. And so we see Peter's heart soften. He comes full circle and begins to love them, because God loves everyone. But I think that's, like, as you look at what's going on in our country right now, there may be a lesson in that about God's love for all people and how we should treat everyone we come in contact with, even if they don't believe what we believe, or even if they don't look like we look like. So what do you think about that, with Peter coming to love the Gentiles?
Yeah, man, I love the relevance of the question too, and especially with everything that's gone on this past weekend and over the past few weeks. I think it just reinforces kind of what we've talked about as a church over the past few years, of the whole concept of loving everyone always, and just how important that is. And especially in times like this, like on a bigger scale, like we're supposed to love everyone always, but then even like just on a smaller scale, like us in our schools or us in our classrooms, like how can you love the person sitting at the desk right next to you? How can you love that friend or that peer in lunch that has nobody to sit with? And I think for us it's more of a concept of knowing like where our identity is. It's in Christ, and Christ has that same love for us that we need to share and show other people. So
and it's interesting too, because Jesus knew Peter's discrimination against the Gentiles, and he actually called Peter to sit and eat with Gentiles to force him to deal with that. And I think even in our own lives, we may have prejudice or bias in us, but we need to give those to God and let him challenge us, and maybe go sit by somebody we wouldn't sit by before, or talk to somebody we wouldn't sit by or talk to, and allow God to work in that. It's not, well, I have it, I'm sinful. Well, yeah, but we can work with that, and all of us should deal with that.
Yeah, and that's a really good point about, like sometimes you have to let go of some of the stuff that you want to hold on to, but you have to let go of that to grow closer to God, or to allow God to use you in different situations. Yeah. So I think that's really good.
And so Peter's writing to the Gentiles because they're being persecuted for their faith. And we believe this letter was written about 64 AD, and that's when the Emperor Nero starts the mass persecution of Christians. So like before, there was some little persecution, but this is the first time a country has said Christians are public enemy number one. And it's actually crazy. They accused them of baby cannibalism, which is really gross, because communion, you're eating body and blood. They would say, oh, they're eating babies. And who wants to hang around a baby cannibal? So it was bad. Nero was smart in how he got them persecuted, but this is when they start getting fed to the lions and everything like that. And so as we think about that, and I mean, obviously in our country, we're not being fed to lions. We're not being persecuted. There are places in this world still being persecuted, but we're not. but we are treated differently sometimes. Sometimes at school, when you admit you're a believer, you get excluded from some things. Or I know personally, when I was in college, there was times they're like, we're going out. Well, we know you don't want to go with us because they knew my faith. And so, even that, we may not persecuted, but we get excluded at least. And then even later in life, as we start looking for a job, if we're following Christ, we're not going to find the job that pays the most money. We're going to find the one that helps the most people. And maybe we don't buy that car because we're going on a mission trip. So there are things that impact us. Our faith can impact us. So why is it important for us to hold fast to our beliefs like Peter's telling us and live out our faith? Why not just look like everybody else?
Yeah. Well, I think it's important, one, to know what your identity is. It's like us as Christians, that is our identity. That's who we are. And then everything else stems from that. So I think that's really important to first understand that idea or concept. But then it's also important to embrace the fact that you're different, to embrace that, our identity is what makes us different than everyone else around us. And I think then once you realize that you are different from everyone else, then it is, how can I affect change, and how can I help people grow who are different? How can I invite them to this lifestyle that I'm living? And I think that it's first befriending them and like becoming friends with people who are not like you, because like one, on the front, that's just a healthy thing to do. Like, it's healthy right. to diversify your friend group and for not everyone to be the same. And I think that it's just a great opportunity to live missionally as well. To like live on mission in ways of inviting friends to hang out with you in a youth group on a Wednesday night or different stuff like that. It was hard for me in middle school to, I guess, live differently than everyone else, because I was kind of put on a pedestal in the sense of like I played sports and stuff, and so everyone who does not play sports, we had a really good basketball team, so everyone was like looking at us like we were the kings of the school basically. And then so looking back, I could have done a lot better. Like, I could have lived differently and better than I did to try and affect some of that change. But I think it's realizing like in the moment that you are different, and then sticking up for what you believe and sticking up for what is actually right and what your identity is in. So
yeah. And I think for me that was what happened with my faith from high school to college. Like, high school I had faith. I don't know if I was a Christian. I thought I was, but I probably wasn't. But it was all personal. I kept it hidden, and I lived how everybody else did because, I can still go to church on Sunday. Yeah. Where at college, I understood I need to live that out. So because it's not just about me getting to heaven, it's about bringing Jesus to other people. And I think that was the big switch in my life where it changed. So Peter, he's saying, all right, you're going to be persecuted. Hang in there, stand firm. And the reason that you stand firm is because what God has in store for you is better than anything. Even, this is bad, but even getting eaten by a lion cannot compare to what God has in store for you in heaven. So I want to take that out, because obviously nobody's going to get eaten by a lion unless they go on a safari in Africa. But, but for our own students to think about what God has in store, both now with Him being in our heart, but also in heaven, is better than that moment of instant gratification or just doing something because it feels good. So when you think about that, how can our students remember that what God has in store for them is better than that moment or that feeling?
I think first it's just the idea of joy. So we're supposed to be joyful in everything that we do, even whenever life goes wrong and it just feels like things are falling apart. Like, where can you find joy in that instinct or in that instant? And I know for me personally, I've had more joy in taking ownership of my relationship with Christ than joy in like any other thing, like video games or basketball games or different friend groups and like stuff like that. And so I think it's important for students to understand the joy that comes with taking the ownership and your relationship with Jesus, because that's really where the true joy comes from. So
right, and to understand, that's so good. I love that, because you're right, and there's a difference between happiness and joy. And joy is going to be there no matter what's going on, and it's going to get you through things and make you feel better. Where happiness may last is kind of like a little kid. Here's some ice cream. I lick my ice cream. It's great. I'm happy. Ice cream's gone. I'm not happy anymore. Where joy stays with you. Yeah. And I think you're right. As a student or as anybody, we should be aspiring for joy, not some quick happiness, because it's going to go away and then you're going to feel the same you did before.
Yeah.
So I like that. All right. So one of the things, Peter, a big theme throughout the book of Peter, both 1st and 2nd Peter, is that we are in the world, but we're not of the world, and that we are called to live as aliens, knowing that we're here to make a difference, but this isn't our home. There's another home for us. So when you think about that with our students, what does that look like? What does it look like to be in the world but not of the world?
I think for one, it's being vulnerable with God, and so realizing that yes, you're in a broken world, and that things around you are not ideal. Like even right now, things that are going on is not an ideal situation for anyone, let alone Christians. And so I think it's, going to God with the different things that are going on, going to God with different things that are going on in your own life, your own heart. And so I think kind of hitting on this a little bit more, but still taking ownership of following God, taking ownership of that relationship, to be vulnerable, be honest with God. And tangibly, I think it looks like, spending time in the Word with God and laying down your thoughts, so like journal a day of like, what's going on. Like I do that from time to time. I try and do it every day. Sometimes I don't get around to it, but I enjoy it so much more whenever, like doing a devotional and like right after that, you're just writing a journal to God, like everything you did that day, and that just like make that your prayer. And I think that's really important to find joy in that, and even I guess the grind of how hard life gets of being in the world, but still knowing that you're following God. So
no, that's really good. So again, we kind of gave you the backdrop for First Peter this week, and it's really to say Peter is adamant: stand firm in God, know who you are, know who you belong to, no matter what's going on in the world, and God will take care of you and bless you. And then there's a blessing beyond this world that you can't even imagine. So Peter is giving a lot of encouragement and a lot of love, and we're going to see that next week. We'll jump into actually First Peter chapter 1 and see that, but as we get ready for that, just thinking about what's ahead this week, any other thoughts, anything else you want to add?
I feel like this is a great time again to talk about camp. So, like find joy, and one of the ways you can find joy is by signing up for Invest Camp and having joy in serving the children here at Southside, and having joy in building better relationships with your peers and students, and finding joy in worshiping God throughout the week. I think I'm really excited about that week, and I think there will be a lot of good things that come from that.
Yeah.
So,
and I'm excited, and like Brian said, I mean, it's not going to be just coming and serving the same kids from Southside. There's a lot of kids that aren't from Southside. There's a lot of kids signed up already that don't go to church. So it's an opportunity to be missional as well as living out the faith, living out what we were just talking about. So that's really cool.
Absolutely.
So check that. If you haven't signed up, you're interested, go to the website, ssbc.org/camp, singular camp, and you can find Invest there. Also remember, follow us on Instagram if you're on there, SSBC Student Ministry, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, yep. SSBC Student Ministry. But guys, we're going to continue to do this, continue to pray for you. If you need anything, we're always here for you. But we pray you have an awesome week, and we look forward to seeing you soon.